The corridor was silent, too silent for a place known for chaos. Only the echo of heavy boots and the trembling breath of an elderly inmate broke the stillness. 3 prison bullies circled him like hungry wolves, smirking as if they'd already won. The old man's back was against the cold wall, his ribs tight from the knee that had just crushed into him. The younger inmates watched from a distance, whispering, laughing, assuming this would end like every other bully attack. They didn't know. They couldn't know. Because beneath that fragile frame, beneath those gray hairs, beneath the sagging jumpsuit of a tired old prisoner, was the heart of a man who had once represented his entire state as a karate champion. A man who had sworn never to fight again. And today, fate was about to test that promise. The morning began like any other inside Iron Ridge Correctional Facility. The clang of bars, the yelling of guards, the shuffle of plastic trays during breakfast. Among all the noise moved Henry Cole, a quiet 70-year-old inmate whose reputation was almost non-existent. Most men saw him as harmless, slow, and too old to matter. He walked with a slight limp and carried a paperback novel everywhere he went, a habit that many mocked. But behind those soft eyes lived decades of discipline. Decades he kept hidden. Henry stayed away from trouble, because trouble in prison did not end quickly. Trouble followed you, stalked you, marked you. But no matter how hard he tried to avoid it, trouble found him that afternoon. The corridor was crowded after lunchtime movement. Blue and orange uniforms mixed like rival tribes, and in the center of the hallway stood the bullies. Derek, Matthews, and Stone. 3 men who treated the facility like their own empire. They pushed smaller inmates aside, laughed loudly, and struck fear into anyone unfortunate enough to cross their path. Henry didn't even see them at first. He was too focused on the chapter of his book, walking slowly, his head bent. That's when Derek stepped in front of him, blocking the way. Stone moved behind him. Matthews leaned on the wall, cracking his knuckles with a smirk. "Look at this old fossil," Derek said loudly, making sure everyone heard. "What are you even doing here, Grandpa? Shouldn't you be in a retirement home?" Henry tried to step aside, but Stone shoved him back with a hard hand to the chest. The book fell to the floor. "Pick it up," Stone sneered. Henry bent to grab it, but Derek's boot kicked it down the hallway. The corridor filled with laughter. Henry felt something twist inside his chest. Not anger, but something deeper. A memory, a gym, a crowd, a bell ringing, his coach's voice echoing, "Never fight unless you must. And when you must, finish it." A powerful knee suddenly drove into Henry's stomach. Air burst from his lungs. His knees buckled. The corridor blurred. He landed hard on the floor, the sound echoing like a dropped weapon. Inmates watched with blank faces, some with pity, some with amusement, most with fear. No one dared intervene. Matthews leaned over him with a grin. "You break easy, old man." Henry coughed, clutching his ribs, feeling the weight of humiliation far more than the pain. He tasted iron, blood, but he swallowed it, refusing to let it show. He whispered something only he could hear. "Not again. I promise, not again." But promises are fragile in prison. Stone grabbed Henry by the collar, ready to deliver another strike. The bullies wanted a spectacle, an example. They wanted the corridor to remember who controlled it. But the corridor would remember something else. Something none of them expected. Somewhere inside Henry, a door he had locked for decades creaked open. He didn't want it to. He didn't want to return to the man he used to be. He hated violence. He hated what fighting had made him become. But survival has its own rules, and even the gentlest spirit can be forced to roar. Stone raised his arm, ready to punch. Henry's hand snapped up fast, precise, clean. His fingers clamped around Stone's wrist with the accuracy of a surgeon. A twist, a step, a drop of the shoulder. Stone crashed to the floor before he understood what happened. The entire corridor froze. Derek's eyes widened. Matthews stepped back. The watching inmates leaned forward in disbelief. The guards at the far end of the hall hadn't noticed yet. Henry rose slowly, breathing steady, posture suddenly different. Balanced, grounded, controlled. His back, once hunched, straightened like steel. Derek lunged at him in anger. Henry sidestepped, hooking Derek's arm and spinning him into the opposite wall. Derek's head smacked against the metal with a dull thud. The man stumbled, disoriented, his dominance evaporating. Matthews tried to swing next, bigger and faster than the others. But Henry moved with the calm patience of a master who had spent a lifetime studying movement. Matthews' fist cut through empty air. Henry pivoted, placing a precise palm strike to his chest. Matthews dropped, gasping, unable to breathe. The corridor erupted into whispers. Did the old man just... Bro, he flipped him. What is he? Henry stood still, hands lowered, breathing steady. He didn't look proud. He didn't look victorious. He looked sad. Like this was the last thing he ever wanted to do. Derek, stubborn and humiliated, charged again. But Henry stopped him mid, run with one swift, perfect motion. A traditional front kick to the torso. Derek flew backward, sliding across the floor. The entire hallway fell silent. Every inmate in blue and orange stared at the old man with a mix of awe and fear. Even the guards finally noticed and sprinted down the corridor, whistles blowing. Henry raised his hands peacefully. I didn't want to fight, he said quietly. But I will not be destroyed. The bullies lay scattered like broken statues around him. And for the first time since he arrived, the inmates looked at Henry not with pity, but with respect. For decades, he had been a ghost, a quiet shadow moving silently through the system. But now the truth was out. Henry Cole, the old, fragile inmate, had once been the state karate champion. The guards placed him against the wall and began questioning him. But even they looked at him differently. Curiously, cautiously, almost respectfully. As Henry stood there, cuffed yet unbroken, he whispered to himself, I hope this never happens again. But if it must, I'll stand my ground. That day, the corridor learned a lesson that spread through the prison like wildfire. Strength doesn't fade with age. Courage doesn't wrinkle with time. And a champion is always a champion, even in chains.